in a luxurious apartment building in Japan. Kamaba Ritoku, a 35-year-old man, enjoyed his delicious dinner alone. He always enjoyed solitude, living a luxurious life as a single man. Because being in a relationship with someone only causes arguments, until finally the relationship ends midway. If living alone, Ritoku is free to spend money as he pleases and do whatever he wants. That's why he doesn't want to get married. That way, he always enjoys life in his solitude. Until suddenly the spoon and fork he was holding fell. He clutched his very painful chest until beads of sweat flooded his entire body. He then died in solitude. Ritoku didn't even regret it at all because he had a life full of freedom. After that, he met two people who called themselves gods. The god dressed all in white with a more cheerful aura regretted that Ritoku didn't have a partner. If he had won, he was sure the man wouldn't die in solitude. However, it seems that god Hit Origami, the god of solitude, dressed all in black, hooded and more quiet, really liked Ritoku's life who always lived alone, so he decided to send the man to his world. And then, Ritoku reincarnated into another world, making him understand the process of reincarnation to Ice Guy, which is trending. The two gods also promised to give any skill the man wanted. Then, he asked for a skill that could be used to live alone. The god dressed all in white gave skills: physical health, all-element abilities, swordsmanship, martial arts, and magic tool creation knowledge. These 5 skills seemed sufficient for Ritoku. Before granting his wish, the god confirmed again that Ritoku really wanted such boring skills, even though there are stronger and better skills. However, reincarnation or whatever. Ritoku didn't care, because what he wanted in the new world later was just to live peacefully alone. That's all. God Hit Origami immediately smiled upon hearing that firm answer. Ritoku himself was determined to realize all his desires in his own way. In a luxurious room, precisely on a canopied bed, Ritoku, who reincarnated as a baby, reached out to the air. The feeling of not expecting that he really reincarnated filled his heart. That means the two people in front of him are his parents now. The woman carried him, making Ritoku uncomfortable, especially when the mother poked his cheeks, because he was already 35 years old. Ritoku was really very annoyed, but both his parents cheered happily because they thought their baby was happy. Now, it was the bespectacled man's turn to cradle Ritoku. If possible, Ritoku regretted that he should have asked the god to become an adult right away. The smiles of both parents were really irritating. If this continues, Ritoku felt he would die again from stress. His father then realized that they should change his diaper. Ritoku immediately froze. He immediately went berserk after being laid on the mattress, and preferred to die rather than be treated like this. The father smiled widely while saying he would change the diaper. Ritoku kept screaming. The mother chimed in that after that Ritoku would be breastfed. Ritoku rebelled even more, especially when his father said he would lift his legs now. He felt like he was in hell. 8 years later, a child sat alone at a study desk in a room full of books. His father, Lesta Lurin, peeked from behind the door, then popped his head in and asked what his son was doing. Jerk Lurin, that was the name of the solitary man in this second life. The child answered that he was drawing a design for a new magic tool. The world where he reincarnated was similar to most fantasy worlds, where there is magic and also magic monsters. In this world, there are also magic tools whose usage is similar to household appliances, but in terms of functionality, they cannot be compared to household appliances. When the god was explaining this, an idea popped into Ritoku's mind. He planned to create magic tools similar to modern household appliances to support his life. That was one of the goals and reasons he asked for a skill called magic tool creation knowledge from the god. The Lurin family devoted their lives to research on making magic tools. That's why Ritoku could reincarnate here. It was indeed arranged by God Hit Origami. Lesta laughed seeing his son's drawing, after peeking from behind Jerk's back. The child then looked up and explained that the tool he drew was something called a refrigerator, which is a box that can emit cold energy inside, and its purpose is to keep food preserved for a long time. Lesta gaped in confusion. Jerk continued his explanation that some foods won't last long in summer. So, drying and salting are the best ways to preserve them. If they can keep food ingredients fresh all year round, then the types of food that can be made can increase. Lesta immediately jolted as if struck by lightning and quickly called Mira, his wife, to come here immediately. Jerk smiled proudly, seeing his father's reaction. Because in his previous life, food was one way to spend leisure time. That's why he wanted to create a refrigerator first. Mira covered her mouth in disbelief seeing Jerk's drawing. She confirmed that it was the design drawn by her son. Lesta confirmed it firmly while staring intently at the paper. He adjusted his glasses while thinking. With a magic circuit like this, they have to consider how much energy the ice magic stone needs to produce cold energy for a long time. However, according to Jerk, it won't be a problem if the cold energy produced isn't too great, because cold air particles tend to fall downward. Both his parents were again frozen by his genius way of thinking. Lesta still looked confused, because he just learned the reason why ice magic stones are often placed on top. But Jerk wanted to preserve food by freezing it. So, he wanted to increase the effectiveness of this magic circuit. Lesta then suggested that his son make 2 magic circuits and connect them in series. Jerk refused while fixing his drawing, because he also had to think about how long the cold energy in the ice magic stone would last. That's why the child wanted to recheck this magic circuit. Lesta immediately shouted praising his son's genius, making Mira touched, but Jerk was startled instead. Being able to do something like this at a young age is certainly a sign that someone is a genius. Even Mira was sure that something called a refrigerator would sell well. 3 servants immediately peeked from behind the door because they heard the commotion, until they also praised the young master's greatness who was creating a new magic tool. Of course, that's very great, because he was only 8 years old. His genius even made them a little jealous. They found it hard to believe because of Jerk's young age. Mira hugged her son proudly, with the possibility that her son's idea could change the world. Lesta was also sure that Jerk's future would be bright, and maybe even brighter than bright. Jerk himself was very tortured and felt hot because he received tight hugs from both his parents. The child really received praise, hugs, and great affection from his parents. They even believed that as long as Jerk was here, the family's future would be guaranteed. Jerk himself just resigned and felt it was okay to feel this atmosphere occasionally. After dealing with books, Jerk felt that optimization was not as easy as he thought. He had been involved in research since he was young, so for now he would learn and hone his abilities as much as he could. Before Jerk finished stating his hopes for the future, suddenly his 2 younger siblings, Ilya Lurin and Alto Lurin, burst through the door and invited him to play. Jerk froze. His relaxed solitary life was disturbed by the presence of the 2 kids, especially when Ilya pulled his shirt and forced him to play, making Jerk shout asking her to stop because his shirt could tear. Jerk then spoke nicely that he was busy fixing the magic tool, so he told his little sister to play with Alto. However, Ilya still refused and insisted on playing with her brother. Ilya was very disappointed that her brother was always like this. When invited to play, Jerk always ran away with the excuse of being busy studying or practicing. His youngest sibling was also sad seeing Ilya's disappointment. Jerk didn't say anything, but he closed the book and stood up from his seat. Ilya was almost crying seeing it, while Alto looked questioningly. It turned out Jerk was willing to play with them and asked what game the 2 wanted. Ilya excitedly said she wanted to play tag, while Alto wanted to play hide and seek. Jerk had no choice and decided to work on fixing his magic tool another day, because a brother's duty is to take care of his siblings. Ilya immediately jumped on Jerk's back, while his brother stroked the youngest sibling's hair. This reminded him of when he still lived in his parents' house before. Ritoku always felt annoyed because he couldn't do what he wanted when he wanted to. Jerk stroked his aching head, thinking about the possibility that he would experience it again now, and it was very tiring. Ilya ran while telling her brother to guard and count to 10. Both siblings ran while stepping on Jerk's equipment, making the owner shout. He then hoped to soon become a magic tool maker expert and quickly leave this house. At the kingdom's capital academy, after asking about the students' readiness, they would start the 3rd trial match today. The girls, of course, cheered to encourage Jerk. After the teacher allowed them to start the game, Jerk prepared with his staff, seeing his opponent running to attack. However, when the staff was swung, Jerk jumped back, making his opponent stumble. As the boy turned, Jerk had already hit his staff until it was thrown. Not out of ideas, to match Jerk's movement, he got up to use his fire element skill. Flames immediately crept, making Jerk use all types of elements until his opponent trembled in fear. The teacher immediately ended this trial. Of course, everyone was shocked to know that Jerk could use all elements, even though humans should only be able to use a maximum of 3 elements. The teacher then asked if Jerk planned to become a hunter or night in the future. However, Jerk admitted he had no plans at all. At the dining table, while eating together with the family, Jerk admitted he had no plans to marry anyone in the future. Suddenly the atmosphere became silent, until Lesta spoke softly that at the academy there must be various girls and asked if there really wasn't anyone his son liked. Jerk turned away while answering no. With a worried face, his father expressed the possibility that Jerk preferred the same gender. The eldest son also denied it while sighing. He was just not interested in having a relationship with someone. His disinterest in marriage remained the same since his previous life. Remembering when Ritoka's girlfriend came to demand attention that she hadn't gotten lately. However, the man said that he needed time to be alone and asked the girl not to meet him first today. His girlfriend, of course, couldn't hold back tears. She questioned Ritoka's reason for asking her out, even though it ended up like this. The girl then left while continuing to sob. Unfortunately for Ritoku, what could only fill his heart was not someone, but the times when he was doing something alone. Freedom unbound by anyone was the reason to continue living. He had no intention of changing his way of life, even after reincarnating now. Lesta hesitated to say it, but if Jerk didn't marry, then their family territory would be affected. Jerk wiped his mouth with a napkin, then said that their territory didn't have to be inherited by the first child. He then bid farewell and left, leaving confusion between his two parents. Lesta started laughing while calming himself with the words that a child must have gone through times like this. Mira laughed along while agreeing. Now it was Ilya and Alto's turn to look at them confused. They decided to wait confidently, because in the future Jerk would surely find his love and get engaged. Jerk Lurin was now 28 years old and of course still unmarried. He was preparing mustard greens to cook breakfast in the kitchen, because now he lived alone in the kingdom's capital. The man had achieved his dream as a magic tool maker and got certification. After building a workplace in the capital, Jerk started earning money by selling his created magic tools. His hand moved to open the refrigerator. After looking inside, Jerk had guessed that it seemed he had to make the thing smaller again. Although he succeeded in making this refrigerator, it was still not better than the refrigerator in Ritoka's world before. The size was too big, so it took up a lot of space. The Lurin family got big profits thanks to this refrigerator. Besides the refrigerator, over these 20 years, Jerk had created many magic tools, like hair dryers, fans, stoves, and so on. After closing the refrigerator door again, a clinking sound made him turn. Apparently, his toasted bread was ready. Jerk hurried to lift it from the toaster, split it until the cheese melted because it was still hot, then ate it, and it tasted good. He ate while wiping the breadcrumbs on his handsome cheek. It seemed selling this bread toaster was a good idea. If he may say, even this tool was quite useful for Jerk. After the sun was high enough, Jerk left the building where he lived and mingled with people passing by crowding the capital. He stopped his steps while looking up, then covered the glare that penetrated his eyes. After seeing the scorching sun, he felt free. Jerk remembered his warm family. Lesta and Mira, who cried because they expected him as the family successor. Then the push to get married soon from the closest people. After holding back for so long, finally Jerk was free from all that. He then praised his good work, then continued the steps that had stopped. The mothers he passed greeted him while informing that nearby there was a beautiful girl. But Jerk passed by just like that while waving his hand and admitting he was not interested. A man then greeted and said he had bought Jerk's latest magic tool, as well as praising his creation. Jerk then thanked him. However, now he was thinking again about making a magic tool useful as a support for his life to be more comfortable. His grin appeared because his life now was perfect. The magic tool maker, Jerk Lurin, in another world. He would enjoy his solitary way of life wholeheartedly. Being free to eat as much as he wants at any time he desires is the best thing for Jerk. He flipped the meat on the grill and ate it directly once cooked. Eating yakiniku is truly delicious when done alone. Beef ribs, beef tongue, delicious beer, and happiness time spent alone. At the market, a man shouted offering his wares. He explained the red beef meat that is suitable for making meatballs when a woman pointed at his display. Since others allowed the tuna that was just caught this morning for 800 solo, making the buyer immediately ask for two. Jerk, who passed by, accidentally saw the interaction. In his previous life, he always lived alone until the end of his life. The former Ritoku, who died in solitude, was offered by the god to reincarnate into another world. and finally reborn as the first child of the Lurin family, which is a family that devotes life to making magic tools. Although it didn't feel too bad getting praise for being able to design a refrigerator at the age of 8. But when growing up, they kept forcing Jerk to think about marriage and continuing the family. Lesta, who persuaded his son to become the successor of the Lurin family. Mira told him to quickly find a partner, so both parents could be at ease. Even the girls who kept admiring him. Jerk continued his life by avoiding such pressures every day. And now, it has been 28 years since he reincarnated into this world. The man has become a professional magic toolmaker in the kingdom's capital, and he really enjoys his life now. After crossing the bridge, Jerk arrived in front of the gate. He stepped in and stopped for a moment, admiring the building in front of him. Now it's time to work. Jerk quickly entered and was immediately greeted by Tristan, the employee, who was tidying up. He also replied to the good morning greeting. Tristan observed Jerk, who opened his coat and hung it, then asked if his boss's mood was bad today. Jerk denied it. Tristan immediately pulled both corners of his lips, forming a smile. He really regretted that Jerk was always gloomy, even though his boss's face was handsome, so he asked him to try smiling more often. Tristan also raised his thumb confidently while saying if Jerk did it, he was sure the man would become even more popular. Jerk looked at him lazily, then turned to take his equipment. He didn't want to be popular and told Tristan to take care of himself, making the young man sigh while complaining about his unfun boss. If he were Jerk, Tristan felt he would have dated many girls. Jerk became even lazier with his employees' overconfidence. After putting on glasses and sitting in the work chair, Jerk asked if the processing of the ice magic stone was done. Tristan, of course, had completed his task with the magic stone in his lap. Indeed, his job here was to process magic stones, because raw magic cannot be used directly. So, Tristan processed the magic stones until they could be used. After seeing the results, Jerk didn't hesitate to praise his good work. Now he told him to process 2 crates of raw materials in front of them. Tristan then complained because there were so many to process today. A short-haired female employee then entered while carrying a stack of papers in her hand and greeted. Both men immediately responded. Rouge, her name, entered enthusiastically because there was another request for making a new magic tool. Her job here was to handle business and sales, finding customers, also delivering goods. Basically, everything outside the production process. Rouge was the one who did it. Tristan then complained even more. Rouge instead laughed and said that having something to do is a good thing. Tristan didn't deny it, but he turned to Jerk because the problem was that they lacked manpower. Rouge agreed and also turned to Jerk. Moreover, they only had 2 workers. She approached the boss and said that their refrigerator sales had profited, then persuaded him to add employees. With a cold tone, Jerk answered he didn't need it, making her poke his cheek. Rouge still kept persuading, because if adding people, sales could also increase. Moreover, many people wanted Jerk's magic tools. The man was still firm with his principle that he created magic tools only for himself and not for others, so he could live comfortably. Rouge massaged her temples because Jerk's thinking hadn't changed. Even so, Tristan raised his hand high because he still wanted additional workers. Jerk finally asked the reason, making Rouge sparkle because she got a chance. However, the frustrated Tristan admitted that if this continued, he would never have a girlfriend. He admitted that Rouge was beautiful, but unfortunately already married, and there was no one else besides the antisocial boss here. Tristan despaired that he would never get a girlfriend as long as he worked here. Actually, he would be 18 years old. At least, Tristan wanted to enjoy his youth, then get married. Casually, Jerk emphasized that the workplace is not a place to find love, and also, he asked what was good about marriage. Because when married, someone has to share their wealth, so they can't use money as they please. Tristan's chest was pierced by that sentence. Jerk continued, free time would become less. That sentence became the second stab in his neck. Finally, before thinking about marriage, Jerk suggested that Tristan try to get certification as a magic tool maker first. And the third stab successfully landed on Tristan's head, making him immediately complain about his hurt heart over the boss's words to Rouge. The woman admitted she didn't fully agree, but she acknowledged that Jerk's words were true. Furthermore, Rouge explained to her boss that marriage also has good sides. Spending time together with someone loved, and also enjoying happiness while taking care of children. Jerk himself understood that many people think like that, but he is the type of person who likes solitude. Spending time with someone doesn't suit people like him, and he also doesn't like children much. Rouge, who was already happy imagining her words, suddenly turned horrified seeing Jerk's figure like a wolf. She then suggested stopping this debate because it was just wasting time, because their thoughts were not aligned. Jerk agreed with the suggestion, but that became a chance for Tristan to call him out because of that principle the boss couldn't marry, even sticking out his tongue. Jerk corrected about him not being able to marry, but he indeed didn't want to. It didn't mean the man didn't get marriage proposals at all, but he indeed wasn't interested in marriage. So Jerk asked Tristan not to equate him with loners who were born unable to marry. Again, Tristan was pierced by his boss's sharp words. Jerk then asked them to continue working rather than continue this conversation. Tristan agreed lazily. Meanwhile, Rouge regretted because Jerk came from a respected family, already established, also handsome. It was really regrettable. The day started to get late. Rouge tidied her work sheets, suggesting to end today's work. Jerk sighed while removing his glasses, then agreed. Tristan also suggested going to eat together after this, because it seemed there was a new restaurant serving food with a very unique method. If he remembered correctly, the name was yakiniku. They would get some meat with small slices that would be grilled themselves. Rouge also knew that the shop was very crowded. Rouge and Tristan even simultaneously mentioned the shop named Depot Yakiniku, Maigyo, enthusiastically. Jerk leaned his head on the chair. Indeed, he hadn't eaten yakiniku for a long time and felt that it wasn't bad either. However, Rouge immediately apologized because she couldn't join. She had to take care of her children. Tristan persuaded her, even if only today. Unfortunately, Rouge didn't not want to go, but she had to prioritize her children first. She then apologized again, hurried to bid farewell, and left, leaving Tristan overcome with disappointment. If just the two of them and no women, he chose not to go. Jerk confirmed that, making Tristan immediately bid farewell to go home. After putting on his coat again, Jerk finally decided to go alone. Jerk walked through the shop corners. Even from afar, he could smell the delicious aroma that made him hungry. He indeed guessed that the queue would be very long, because now it was dinner time. Jerk pushed through the crowd, making an employee who managed the queue stop him and tell him to queue. The employee immediately got a reprimand. The chef apologized to Jerk for his new employee, who didn't know anything, then hurried to tell the young man to apologize. The employee immediately bowed respectfully and apologized, then went back to work. Jerk asked not to prolong this matter. Besides, he also mentioned about this place becoming more crowded. The chef said that all this was thanks to Jerk. All this was the result of his cooking practice, using the idea Jerk suggested, and he was very grateful. The man stepped past the chef's impression while saying, at that time he just wanted to express his thoughts, no more. Besides, Jerk asked if his usual place was still available. However, that was for sure. The chef immediately escorted Jerk to his place. The waiters who saw the man's arrival cheered. After Jerk sat and put on an apron, the chef immediately lit the fire and prepared the grill while asking what the man ordered this time. Jerk asked the chef to give the menu he always ordered. After waiting a while, his order was ready. Red beef tongue, large sliced harami, and beef ribs, all for one portion, and a glass of beer. Jerk immediately grilled the red beef tongue. According to him, it wasn't complete coming here without eating red beef tongue. Once cooked, Jerk pinched it with chopsticks, then ate it with the provided sauce. High-level slicing technique, and also perfect seasoning use. Depot Yakiniku Maigyo was indeed the best meat restaurant. Slice after slice he ate greedily. Then a glass of beer immediately followed, making Jerk really satisfied. This satisfaction, Jerk felt he would never get it if his two employees were here. Suddenly Tristan was already sitting in the chair in front of him. With a cheerful face as usual, the young man asked what his boss wanted to eat. Before Jerk finished answering his desire to eat beef ribs, Rouge first responded her desire to eat offal, from the side of her chair. Tristan welcomed the woman's desire warmly. The noisy sound between the two. The careless and noisy Tristan and Rouge, who was more mature, but sometimes the same. Jerk sighed, then felt if the atmosphere was like in his imagination, he wouldn't be able to enjoy his food. So coming alone was the right choice. While other chairs seemed filled with customers who came in groups. The chef who watched his customers quickly turned, upon hearing two female waiters talking about Jerk. They even fought to receive Jerk's additional order. Both immediately startled upon hearing the chef say with a serious tone that he didn't mind who would receive his order, but he warned them not to do anything to Jerk. Both then nodded understanding. However, both still fought, making the chef sigh. Jerk Lurin was a long-time customer and also donor. Even though before, this restaurant was almost bankrupt. Because in the kingdom's capital there were many new shops opened, so there was fierce competition in competing for customers. This restaurant became more and more outcompete. At that time the restaurant's condition was very bad, because sales always lost. Until one day, Jerk came and saw that lately, the restaurant became more and more empty. He realized that the situation was not good. So, the chef explained that this old restaurant couldn't compete with the existing food developments. If only he had a new breakthrough to attract customers, using the remaining meat still stored a lot in the shop display. Jerk thought while crossing his arms. Then he saw the chef's poster grilling meat beside the display, making him get an interesting idea. The chef shouted in disbelief, hearing Jerk tell him to slice the meat thinly, then stack it on a plate. Then let the customers grill it themselves. The method the man suggested was called yakiniku. The chef really couldn't fathom that strange method. According to him, if the chef grills it, it's still reasonable, but if customers grill, this was the first time he heard it. Jerk said this was something called enjoy the taste of grilling yourself. The chef still couldn't believe it. If he had to slice it thinly, that means the portion became even smaller. Then tell customers to grill themselves. People would say this was troublesome, then customer complaints would increase. Honestly, the chef didn't know at all about this method. But rather than doing nothing and letting this shop go bankrupt by itself, so reluctantly he tried the method called yakiniku. And the result, customers felt very satisfied. The joy while waiting for the meat to cook and enjoying all kinds of cuts in one bite, the taste was very delicious. The combination between barbecue seasoning taste with perfect meat, then the lemon pickle seasoning, also made it addictive. Customers even asked for more. Reports about longer queues and overwhelming employees made the chef click his tongue in amazement. As can be seen, this restaurant immediately went viral. Every day filled with customers, to the point that previously big losses turned into big profits, all thanks to Jerk. The two waiters then expressed their curiosity to the chef about yakiniku that was better enjoyed together, but Jerk always ate it alone. The chef said that everyone has their own way to enjoy something. Moreover, he remembered Jerk really enjoyed it even alone. He knew Jerk's way of enjoying it was by eating alone, so the chef warned his two waiters not to disturb. Both then agreed. Jerk, who initially enjoyed his yakiniku, now froze. Because it seemed, in the future he had to quickly find rice to make into rice. Jerk enjoyed a quiet holiday alone by sitting at a work desk, facing the window. He put back his pen, then removed his glasses while massaging his head, because he thought that today he could pour out a cool idea. His gaze fell on the city view. It had been a long time since the man went to the city. He planned to go there to change the atmosphere. The Adventurers Guild is an association that oversees adventurers who seek income by exterminating monsters. Many adventurers passing by and greeting each other, whether in the lobby or in the canteen. This is where Jerk was, standing in front of the bulletin board, choosing jobs between cleaning, being a porter, searching for herbal plants, or exterminating weak monsters. It seemed there was no extermination of dangerous monsters here. That means he could collect herbal plants peacefully. After queuing, finally the man could meet the receptionist, who immediately greeted him and offered help. Jerk said he wanted to take the herbal plant search mission while handing a leaflet he took from the bulletin board. The receptionist repeated the mission Jerk would do, namely collecting karuka grass and button mushrooms in the eastern forest. However, she then suggested that Jerk make a party. The man was already rank B and always did missions alone. If making a party, Jerk could rank up faster and also get more money. Jerk apologized and admitted he didn't need it for now. There were some disadvantages if he formed a party. Based on the power blessing given by God Hit Origami, if Jerk formed a party, then his power would weaken significantly. When he was young, Jerk once took on a mission that required 3 adventurers, and he became very weak like a balloon waving in the wind. His fellow adventurers warned that the slime-shaped monster was heading towards him. Jerk didn't have time to dodge when the monster jumped at him and shocked him just like that. He was so weak that he was easily defeated. The adventurer who acted as a mage waved his hand, asking for help to carry Jerk's body. But the sword-wielding adventurer was still busy with the monsters. His face looked shocked and worried as he turned to Jerk, who was already helpless. Proverbs like "United we stand" divided we fall, don't seem to work for Jerk. The man quickly turned away from the receptionist while saying that he had no intention of raising his rank too high, so he didn't need it. Then he bid farewell, leaving confusion on the receptionist girl's face. In the forest, Jerk immediately found Karika grass, whose use is to remove the fishy smell from meat and fish, and can be used for preservation. Also, button mushrooms that taste good when eaten can be boiled or grilled. He picked the button mushrooms that seemed to have good quality. The man hugged the herbal plants he had picked and immediately put them into the bag. He wanted to give time for the tool to shine. That was a magic artifact bag, namely a bag that can hold items exceeding normal capacity. But that doesn't mean its capacity is unlimited. Artifacts are tools whose technology has surpassed current civilization. A mysterious object that cannot be recreated using existing technology like magic tools, for example teleportation rings, flying cloaks, and disguise mantles. Artifacts can only be found in dungeons, and their prices can be very expensive. There are also adventurers who enter dungeons with the aim of getting rich quickly. After putting in his herbal plants, Jerk couldn't think of anything about this bag except a mysterious tool. Even he himself didn't understand the structure of this thing at all, even though he had the magic tool creation skill. However, his eyes immediately sparkled thinking about talking about romance. Artifacts are filled with technology that is still foreign, so they can be researched further. These objects have extraordinary feelings and cannot be obtained from ordinary magic tools. Jerk became very excited. He liked it because these objects were very useful. Suddenly, his gaze saw a sharp horn with a tail eye. As he turned, Jerk found a wild boar that was angry because its favorite mushrooms were taken. He immediately drew his sword from its sheath, because it had been a long time since he practiced swordsmanship. He said that the boar came at the right time. One by one the boar's steps advanced, until then it ran charging. Jerk prepared with his sword, but as the boar approached, he quickly dodged. The man turned, still with the same sword position, but he was surprised to see the boar not moving because its tusk was stuck in the tree. He then approached and sighed. Even this couldn't be called a warm-up. But even so, Jerk couldn't let the boar go just like that. Finally, he got black wild boar material. The man sat facing the boar body parts. After packing all this, he planned to end today's mission, and after that, Jerk wanted to go to his usual place. Clouds drifted in the high sky, accompanying Jerk, who walked through the forest. He smiled as he peeked from behind the bushes. Birds seemed flying across the calm lake. Although he often came here, the view still felt beautiful to him. Finally, he could peacefully enjoy this view alone. However, as he stepped closer, Jerk realized the presence of a tent and someone sleeping on a lazy chair under it. Even the person covered his face with a book. Jerk was very annoyed because there was someone else. Although it was normal if someone else came here, because this wasn't a private place. Jerk was sure the sleeping man probably also wouldn't care if he was here and consider him a stranger. Jerk hammered nails to set up his tent. After feeling enough, he then took out supplies. Then his self-made portable smoker to smoke his food. First, he cut all the supplies, then placed them on a plate. Light the charcoal on the portable tool with fire, press the power on button. After that, just plug the hose into the container and done. Jerk placed the plate containing his food ingredients into the container. Somehow, now he felt very hungry. Jerk waited for his food to be ready while reading a book, until his stomach growled, making him guess it was time to lift his food. He removed his glasses when seeing the smoke was already a lot, and sure that the taste must have seeped in. He was very happy seeing his food that looked delicious, as the lid was opened. His gaze immediately cynical when the stranger earlier approached with sparkling eyes at his food. As he turned, Jerk immediately asked about who the stranger was. Apparently his name was Ether. Jerk was very tired because it seemed involved in something troublesome while lifting his food container. When Ether looked shocked, Jerk immediately gave a cynical look, especially when knowing that Ether was the person in the next tent. Ether pleaded not to be suspected like that. He just woke up because he smelled a delicious aroma coming from Jerk's tent and made him curious. He then came here. If so, Jerk felt his business was done here, so he allowed him to return to the tent. However, Ether immediately cut his sentence, with the fact that Jerk was smoking his food with something, making him curious about the taste. Jerk was annoyed. Of course, if it wasn't delicious, he wouldn't bring it. Suddenly, Ether immediately asked permission to taste it, making Jerk guess that the man had never eaten smoked food before. Finally, Reluctantly, Jerk gave a skewer and allowed him to choose one that Ether wanted. The man Jerk just met immediately took a piece of cheese, then smelled it first. Jerk didn't care. He immediately ate it greedily. Ether felt there was a distinctive aroma from the food, not smoke smell, but really a strange smell. After trying, the taste was really extraordinarily delicious. He immediately asked where Jerk got the cheese and guessed it as high-quality cheese. Jerk denied it, because the cheese was just ordinary cheese and bought at the market in the city. Ether didn't expect ordinary cheese could be this delicious. The aroma, or maybe the taste, felt very distinctive, and he thought the taste was more than ordinary cheese. Ether stared at the plate seriously and asked about the food. Jerk explained that it was called smoked dish, but this time he only used the usual method to bring out the aroma. Ether himself never thought that smoking food could make it tastier. Jerk said the process wasn't that easy. He took out a bag while saying that the smoking had to use special charcoal so the taste seeped in more. Ether took the bag and looked closely at the special charcoal. He thought it was just dry wood leftover from burning. Jerk confirmed that and informed that he used apple wood as the charcoal. However, when Ether tried to open the bag to smell it, Jerk immediately snatched it back. This time, Ether asked permission to try the others. Jerk had no choice but to agree. He told Ether to hurry get his plate and told him to return to the tent after taking his share. Ether immediately ran to his tent and soon returned. Jerk looked confused seeing Ether bringing glasses with a bottle of drink, making the owner thank him for letting him taste delicious food. In return, Ether would give the drink bottle as thanks. As it was offered, Jerk immediately recognized that it was Kerberos Cap wine, namely a rare wine from a famous winemaking region called Kerberos. Roughly only hundreds of bottles produced each year. Ether confirmed his guess. He was sure if Jerk knew, meaning the man was also an alcoholic drink lover. This item was very hard to get, so he offered Jerk to taste it while offering the drink bottle. Jerk, who already held his glass, smiled, while saying thank you. Finally, they ate their food very greedily in their respective tents. Jerk gulped his wine. He had guessed the taste was very delicious, then continued eating his smoked dish. This was a perfect combination. He didn't expect there would come a day where he could taste Kerberos Cap wine. Even in his previous life, he also once exchanged food and drinks with fellow solo campers. If you give something good to others, surely you will get something good too. That advice didn't seem bad. From the opposite tent, Ether also exclaimed over the perfect combination deliciousness of smoked dish and Kerberos Cap wine. Jerk ignored the commotion made by the man. While he felt like going fishing after finishing this food, Jerk returned after night came. He planned to eat grilled fish with salt. However, his steps stopped upon seeing a horse carriage in front of his house. He guessed the possibility that it was from his family, but no. If looked more closely, there was no Lurin family emblem on the horse carriage, and maybe just an ordinary horse carriage. A woman who seemed to have waited long finally saw the house resident had returned. Jerk immediately turned and saw Ilya's fury. Ilya stood with hands on hips because her brother had finally come home. Jerk turned around, wondering about the reason his little sister was here. This was very bad. The woman came when he was off guard. Even though the Lurin family horse carriage wasn't parked in front of the house, Ilya was bold enough to come here alone. Ilya denied her brother's words. She didn't come alone, but with Gilliam, and both rode an ordinary horse carriage. Gilliam immediately bowed respectfully. The man with a thick mustache and monocle was the Lurin family servant who escorted Ilya today. Jerk sighed seeing Gilliam, who also visited him. He then asked the reason his sister went to the trouble of using an ordinary horse carriage to come here. Apparently, Ilya already knew that Jerk would definitely run away if he saw a horse carriage with the Lurin family emblem. The lazy Jerk immediately asked the reason for their arrival. Suddenly, Ilya flared up. She immediately brought up the family dinner invitation, even though she had sent it many times. Jerk admitted he had only seen it, even though he more often ignored it. He then said that today he was busy, so the man couldn't come. Ilya didn't accept it and insisted that Jerk had to come with her. He then turned around while saying he didn't want to go. Ilya immediately grabbed his hand because she didn't accept rejection. Jerk stopped and turned. Before he finished saying he wanted to go, his sister insisted she disagreed. It had been a year since Jerk hadn't come home. Mira was very worried about him, and also, Lesta ordered Ilya to bring her brother home by any means. After explaining, she asked her brother to visit home once in a while. However, Jerk felt he didn't believe his sister's words, especially since their father was usually kind and impossible to say that. Gilliam joined the conversation, that everyone in the mansion was also very worried about the young master. He asked Jerk to spare a little time to go home with them. Jerk was annoyed because he couldn't refuse if Gilliam asked. He kept holding back his emotions until finally giving up. He agreed and asked Gilliam to stop calling him young master. Ilya immediately cheered. Gilliam also thanked his master. Jerk said he would go prepare and told them both to wait in the carriage. Even though Ilya wanted to wait at her brother's house, Jerk firmly refused. Ilya demanded a reason, so her brother said that he wasn't the type to allow strangers into his house. Ilya immediately went berserk while pulling Jerk's back shirt and shouting that she was the man's family. Jerk then explained that his rule included family, especially Ilya, who often entered his room without permission and damaged his magic tools. The girl then remembered when she was little, she accidentally unplugged Jerk's magic tool, making the owner annoyed. So Jerk forbade entry. Still, Ilya didn't accept it because that was about 15 years ago. She still demanded an explanation about Jerk's reason for forbidding her now. The man immediately told her to be quiet because his little sister had disturbed the neighbors. They then arrived at the mansion. Gilliam immediately opened the door for both his masters. Lesta hurried to welcome his son's arrival. It had been a year since they last met. He asked about Jerk's well-being. When the father nudged his back to align their steps, Jerk admitted nothing changed in just 1 year. Lesta agreed and said that his eldest was like his mother, who always stayed young no matter how many years passed. Ilya immediately scolded her father and asked to continue this conversation at the dining table. Lesta and Gilliam laughed. The father then apologized because it had been a long time since chatting with Jerk. Upon arriving at the dining room, Mira was already waiting alone and complained about Jerk being late. Jerk opened his coat and handed it to Gilliam. He reasoned that his mother called suddenly. Mira didn't accept it. She knew that Jerk didn't even read her letter from the beginning. Ilya whispered to her mother about Jerk, who had intended not to come here if she didn't pick him up. She then got emotional again about what happened at Jerk's house, when she was treated very badly by her brother, even though Ilya had come from far to pick him up. Suddenly Ludwig, Ilya's husband, held Jerk's shoulder because his brother-in-law had finally come, making the man surprised. Ludwig sat beside him and said that he would certainly come, because this was a family dinner. He was a chemist who was Jerk's colleague in the material field and now had become Ilya's husband. At that time, Ludwig admitted he wanted a girlfriend and asked if Jerk had any female acquaintances. Jerk admitted he had no acquaintances, but he only had a little sister. That's how both planned to marry. Honestly, Jerk didn't expect he could get close to his sister. If thought about, when they met at work last week, Jerk heard Ludwig complain and say that the dinner event seemed a bit troublesome. So, Jerk brought that sentence to the dining table now. However, Ludwig immediately stepped on his foot and told him to read the atmosphere. He then asked back about what Jerk said and admitted that it wasn't true. They finally got involved in whispering. Jerk told him not to act nice just because Mira was here. Unfortunately, Ludwig had no choice, because socializing was also important. Finally, they got involved in kicking feet under the table. Jerk explained that it was a disadvantage after marriage. Ludwig then greeted Sarah and asked if his child was happy to meet Jerk. The man whose name was mentioned glanced at him cynically for changing the conversation. Sarah, Ludwig and Ilya's daughter, who sat across the table, right in front of him without confusion. Innocently, she asked about who the man in front of her was. Suddenly it became a laughing matter, making Jerk annoyed. Jerk hadn't shown his face for a long time, to the point his own niece forgot him. Ilya then asked her brother to introduce himself again for his cute niece. Jerk, with his annoyed face, then introduced himself. This time, Sarah brought up her uncle's status, who was still single. Ilya instead supported her daughter's question. Jerk got more inflamed because this question often came up at family gatherings. Mira also brought up her eldest son's age, who had reached 28 years, so she asked when Jerk would give her a grandchild. The man was still firm with his principle not to marry. Ilya was annoyed and asked the reason. Jerk firmly said he really liked being alone, so he wasn't interested in marriage. He was even bored of keep saying that. Ilya guessed her brother liked the same gender, making Jerk deja vu. However, he still insisted on not looking for a woman even if anyone told him. Mira guessed Jerk just hadn't found a woman to his taste. Ludwig stated that his brother-in-law was often approached by women at meetings or at work. Ilya wasn't surprised, because if seen from the cover, her brother was indeed a woman's dream man. Handsome, established, single, smart, tall, even noble family. Even though many women were interested in him, but he acted like this. Mira even cried while pleading to anyone to take her son and convince him to marry soon, because she couldn't stand it anymore. She couldn't wait to see a grandchild from Jerk. Even if not for his created magic tools, Ilya already considered her brother as an unfilial child. The commotion made Jerk really want to go home. He cleared his throat to stop the commotion, always questioning Alto's whereabouts. Ilya explained that Alto was attending a noble socialization event, so he couldn't join the family gathering. Jerk got more annoyed because Alto was allowed not to attend, while he was required to attend. Mira and Ilya instead put on fierce faces. His mother said that Jerk had no right to refuse because it had been a year since he hadn't come home to this house. Ilya also reminded that her brother could live freely all this time without disturbance. That was because of Alto. Jerk didn't realize that Alto was a reliable little brother as the family head. For his freedom, Alto would inherit this family. For Jerk, who hated socializing, he would attend parties or meetings held by nobles. Jerk immediately apologized while clasping both hands. He admitted he would happily accept his youngest brother's absence tonight. Lesta then reached out and invited to eat first. Sarah also responded and said that her stomach was already hungry. After the commotion subsided, the servants came bringing food and serving it on the table. By the way, Mira was curious if her eldest son had eaten regularly all this time. Jerk admitted that he liked cooking, so he usually cooked himself at home. Ilya smiled mockingly. She was sure her brother only bought expensive meat, then fried it just like that. Or if not, Jerk only cooked as a compliment to alcoholic drinks. Jerk sighed while denying it, but after remembering, he was indeed like that, only eating favorite foods every day. Seeing her brother turn away, Ilya knew her words hit the mark. Mira also nagged, because if Jerk ate irregularly, then he could get sick. Jerk looked back at them while calming her, because with the blessing from God hit origami, he wouldn't get sick. Ilya of course didn't believe it, and asked on what basis the man said that. Confidently, Jerk talked about the proof that because of the blessing from God hit origami, he never got any disease. This time, Ilya couldn't deny it, because it was indeed a fact. However, Lesta advised him, when Jerk got old later, his immunity would decrease, so it was good to eat healthy food from now. Mira also confirmed it. Even though now fine, she still told Jerk to eat regularly. The commotion, once again, made Jerk want to go home. Suddenly all eyes turned to Sarah, because her stomach had growled. She then asked if she could eat now. Lesta apologized and invited her to eat. Ilya did the same. Sarah could only snort annoyed. After observed, Sarah was indeed a savior angel, and Jerk planned to utilize her. Lesta said, for the blessing and prosperity of the Lurin family. They then toasted, clinking glasses. Ludwig's gaze fell on a plate of fish he had never seen. Ilya knew that it was fish caught by her brother. Jerk then explained that the fish was called Savannah. He was determined to eat fish today. Ludwig immediately took it because it looked delicious. He chewed slowly to taste it, as did his father-in-law. Lesta wasn't sure that this was really Savannah fish, because the taste was different from what he had eaten before. While according to Ludwig, this wasn't an ordinary grilled fish, and there must be something behind it, maybe the taste. Sarah also liked it, even though, according to Ilya, her daughter hated eating fish because of the smell. So, innocently, Sarah said that this one didn't smell. Gilliam then showed the portable smoker. Apparently they used the magic tool brought by Jerk, so they could cook the fish with a special method. Ludwig didn't know about the thing, because it was the first time seeing it. Jerk explained, with that tool, they needed a special person whose use was to cook dishes with the smoke produced. That way, they could eliminate the smell, and also make the taste seep in. Ludwig took the thing and looked at it closely. He praised Jerk for creating another great tool. He then persuaded his brother-in-law to sell the tool to him. Lesta joined in exclaiming wanting it. Both really coveted the tool. Jerk didn't want to sell it, but if refused, it would add problems again. Finally he gave in and promised to make and send it to them. The two in-laws cheered happily. Jerk couldn't stand it anymore and wanted to go home. The next day, Jerk let out a very long breath. Last night Mira demanded him to come home again soon. Jerk could only agree, but after 3 years later he said. Now the man was really annoyed. His work had no progress at all. Even his tiredness hadn't gone since yesterday. Tristan then bid farewell for lunch. Jerk didn't realize it was lunchtime, so he decided to go too, because coincidentally there was a stall he wanted to visit. Unfortunately, today's progress wasn't finished. He forced himself to go after completing it. Savannah fish seemed dancing in his brain, making him unable to concentrate at all. His fingers returned the pen to its place. Occasionally changing the atmosphere seemed a good idea. After arriving at the dreamed stall, Jerk immediately ordered seafood tomato soup to answer the seller's greeting. Then, he observed the hanging seafood in front of his eyes and chose one grilled crab skewer as addition. The total became 900 solo. After occupying his table, Jerk really couldn't wait smelling the delicious aroma of his order. He planned to try the grilled crab skewer first. His first bite was truly unforgettable. The crab taste that immediately spread in the mouth, the right amount of salt, plus the charcoal aroma still attached. This was all an amazing combination. Bite after bite very greedily until finished. He switched to seafood tomato soup, with quite a large portion. Jerk grabbed the bowl and drank the broth directly. The taste from sea ingredients combined with the sourness from slowly steamed tomatoes. Also the spicy taste from chili that gave a kick. The taste was really addictive. Now switch to the seafood. 1 bite, 2 bites, 3, and until finished. He was very grateful for the food. Jerk continued his steps to return to work, still with the satisfaction from today's lunch. Among the passing people, he saw a paper offered and reflexively took it. As panicked, Jerk just realized that they were distributing it to everyone. He thought it was just an ad brochure or boring propaganda, so he intended to make it. However, the picture from the paper stopped him. After looked closely, apparently it was a poster for an orchestra concert. The musicians started entering the orchestra room. A woman carrying a violin named Katerina, who seemed complaining about her sore feet, and felt she would sprain if she kept using high heels. If only she knew earlier, she would choose to use regular shoes. She then got a warning to walk faster if she didn't want to be left behind. Katerina then hurried and asked to be waited for. Jerk was already in the audience seats to enjoy lunchtime by watching music performance. The conductor led all musicians in a very great music flow. Jerk used to listen to classical music through cassettes. But if compared to listening live, the result was certainly far different. This was very interesting, if seeing different musical instruments could unite in one harmony. For example, like the musical instrument held by the lizard man, Jerk didn't know the name. Even according to him, the complexity level was like a magic circuit. After thought again, he realized there was no law saying magic circuits had to be one layer. If he stacked magic circuits like that musical instrument, curiosity made him impatient to try. Jerk started restless because he wanted to return quickly. If not, later he could forget all he had thought. After evening, Rouge immediately bid farewell to go home. Jerk only saw her off, without turning. He stared at the paper in his hand proudly, because finally the cooling design progress went smoothly. Suddenly, Tristan called and invited him to dinner together. Jerk then repeated Tristan's sentence cynically that the young man said eating with him was just a waste. Tristan scratched his head because he felt he never said that, but Jerk instead turned to go home. The young man immediately blocked and asked his boss to wait. He then admitted he had no money. With full hope, he asked please for Jerk to treat him. Jerk froze, then held Tristan's shoulder while saying that his salary last time should be enough. Apparently, Tristan's money ran out because he bought a gift for the woman he liked at the nightclub. Jerk didn't care and chose to go. Tristan immediately held his leg and apologized while forcing him to treat expensive food. He kept whining and asked Jerk to consider this as charity for his suffering employee. Moreover, all this time he had never eaten with his boss, so once again Tristan asked please. While the young man kept pleading, Jerk thought that indeed one of a superior's duties was to shelter his subordinates. Finally both walked together. Tristan wanted to eat at Yakiniku Maigyo restaurant, but Jerk refused because he had eaten there. Tristan was shocked hearing the confession and asked who went with him. He guessed his boss went with someone he liked. Jerk casually admitted he only went there alone. Tristan was stunned, because as he knew Yakiniku restaurant was most fun if visited in groups. Because not allowed at Maigyo, so Tristan would just follow wherever his boss ate. Jerk was happy because his subordinate wasn't fussy. His gaze caught a sign. He then apologized and said he wanted to go to that artifact shop for a while. Tristan complained and asked to go another time, because if Jerk already came to the artifact shop, it would definitely take long. Without heeding, Jerk immediately turned away, making Tristan like it or not still follow him. At Aldius' artifact shop, the bell rang signaling their arrival. Tristan immediately screamed in horror, seeing the guard in armor with a long and curved goat skull horn. The guard was still scary. Moreover, his whole body was very stiff and filled with cursed items. Jerk only smiled mockingly when Tristan hid behind his back and said that was what he got from an artifact fanatic. Tristan could only grimace because he had guessed. An artifact fanatic indeed had an abnormal brain. Jerk looked very excited, even though he had often come here. But this place didn't make him bored at all, and as usual, artifact prices were very expensive. Useful or not, artifacts were artifacts. The prices were expensive because they couldn't be made by people using current knowledge or technology. Tristan couldn't say anything because he still didn't understand. By the way, Guan brought up Jerk, who came here again, even though he just visited 3 days ago. Jerk himself felt that was a good thing, because artifacts were once-in-a-lifetime opportunities. So, he immediately asked if there were new items that just arrived here. And of course, Guan said this might be something the man liked. Jerk couldn't wait and asked to be shown immediately. Guan showed a glass without any decorations attached, and the size was also small, similar to a regular glass. He then asked what the glass could do. Guan told him to see first. As he said the word "fill up," bubbling liquid appeared little by little from the bottom, until full. Jerk shouted in amazement, because this glass could produce soda drink. Guan confirmed while pouring the drink into another glass. Apparently the glass was called bubble glass. There was a mysterious spring that produced soda water. That's why in this world there were also soda drinks. But their existence was very rare, and not everyone could enjoy them. Jerk drank it in one gulp, then asked the price. Tristan was confused seeing his boss who wanted to buy the bubble glass, even though it was useless. Guan gave a price of 30 million solo and Jerk just agreed. The man looked very happy when writing the number on paper, but Tristan's feeling really couldn't be described. He held his boss's shoulder and emphasized that it was 30 million money. Jerk could even buy a house in the capital with that much money. But according to Jerk, with 30 million money, he could also make various soda drinks, and that was a fair price to pay. With this, he could even open a bar or something. Guan was happy because his customer already saw the potential of this item. He allowed Jerk to take it, because the item was now his. Tristan really didn't know what to say anymore. Even in front of his own employee, Jerk seemed to want to assault him. The man admitted he didn't care, because what had happened, then happened. It felt very pleasant to be able to buy items this expensive without hesitation. Feelings like this couldn't be obtained if already married and had children. Undoubtedly, there would be talks like, instead of buying this, better the money for the future. Being single made Jerk free, but being free didn't mean free from responsibility. Sometimes, he had to think about future plans to live alone. That's all, the rest was freedom. After packing his item, Jerk planned to go home. Meanwhile, at the same time, Tristan wanted to eat. He shook his boss's body because his treat hadn't yet. However, Jerk felt unsafe carrying a 30 million artifact everywhere. Tristan knew even though Jerk said that, actually his boss just wanted to use it immediately. Jerk turned while saying goodbye. He also didn't accompany his employee's words. He then apologized, because it seemed their date tonight was cancelled, and maybe another time. After the bell rang signaling Jerk who had gone out. Guan said that even though Jerk was handsome and established, but it seemed impossible for him to marry with such a nature. The limp Tristan could only confirm it. Upon arriving home, Jerk placed the bubble glass on the table. He kept staring at it proudly. Seen from its shine, undoubtedly this item was indeed a real artifact, and the condition was also still good. Jerk flicked and rubbed the glass, because curious, roughly made from what material this item was. He then ignored his curiosity, because the important thing, now he could produce soda whenever he wanted. Suddenly thought to make highball or alcoholic drink with this. Jerk then took an ice block. Even though actually he could make the ice directly using magic, but it felt more fun if occasionally cutting the ice himself. Jerk used a knife and hammer to cut the ice. He was also mesmerized seeing the most perfect ice cut he ever made. The ice cuts were then placed in the glass. Then poured alcoholic drink, then stirred until mixed. He took the bubble glass and asked it to fill up immediately. He poured the soda drink into the glass. Jerk immediately drank it. After one sip, Jerk thought about food suitable as highball complement, namely carriage. Jerk tried his still hot food. The ginger and onion seasoning was very right. Next, he added a little lemon squeeze. Jerk continued with the next bite and felt that adding lemon was also very delicious. Highball was gulped again. This was indeed the best for him, namely the luxury obtained after producing 30 million solo. All this was the result of persistence to pursue solitary life goal. After going through hard work and patience, finally now he could live freely. Jerk wanted to praise his past self for working hard until now. If thought about, many things happened today. Visiting the theater could give an idea about magic circuits. Then, he also got a valuable artifact whose price was only 30 million solo. Jerk raised the bubble glass high, because today was indeed the best day. He planned to enjoy drinking tonight wholeheartedly. Maybe after this, he would also make carbonated alcoholic drink or spritzer. He kept whistling, celebrating success. Katerina opened the door while announcing her return. Her house was very dark. She patted her cheeks and determined to stay focused on practicing music today. Her name was Katerina McClare. She dreamed of a career in the music world, so she left both parents at home and lived alone in the kingdom's capital. Katerina scolded herself and said she wouldn't survive in the music world if she kept complaining, even encouraging herself while removing heels. The pain in the heel made her body slump. She cursed her heels while crawling and swore not to use them again. As she opened the bedroom door, Katerina saw a room like a wrecked ship. Even though tired, it seemed she had to tidy it first. When she was little, all housework was always done by maids. Katerina sighed again and reminded herself not to complain. She determined to tidy it now. However, her body said otherwise. She jumped on the sofa and said she would tidy it another time. The feeling of not wanting to move and the desire to sleep was greater. As she started to doze off, Katerina got up again. The girl went berserk. If she slept now, her career could be ruined. She then chose to eat first. Unfortunately, there were only wilted vegetables that couldn't be eaten, and things that used to be meat and had rotted. Katerina stepped back, smelling the unpleasant odor. She sighed and chose not to have dinner tonight. Even though placed in the refrigerator, it didn't mean food ingredients could last forever. Katerina then apologized to her food ingredients. Even so, this food refrigerator had a lot of space, while she wanted a smaller refrigerator. Even though she had often sent many application letters to a magic tool maker named Jerk Lurin, about the stove knob that was very hard, so difficult to use by women, about her desire to use hair dryer when outside, so she wanted Jerk to make a portable version. Unfortunately, no response at all. Until now, it seemed Katerina's letters were ignored. The proof was the sold magic tools didn't improve at all. However, she wouldn't give up to keep sending letters to Jerk Lurin until the man really made it. For now, she decided to practice violin. Katerina used a sound-dampening magic tool, which could dampen sound from inside but still hear sound from outside. Her eyes focused on the notebook, making her start bowing the violin. Suddenly heard the noisy neighbor's sound and sounded like a male voice, making her turn to the wall. Katerina turned back. She planned to ignore it and stay focused on practicing. However, the sound kept disturbing and scattering her focus. The girl who couldn't hold her emotion anymore finally kicked the wall. She fell, rolled around while cursing. The sound next door didn't heed her at all. Katerina then stuck to the wall and shouted, telling him to use sound dampener if he wanted to sing. Katerina even pounded the wall, but the neighbor who turned out to be Jerk Lurin kept singing, chanting his satisfaction. Even though Jerk wanted breakfast at his regular cafe, but there were still many people, making him forced to find another place. His eyes caught an interesting place. He poked his head to see inside. Jerk didn't know there was a cafe this good around here. As he entered, a man welcomed the arrival and allowed him to sit at the desired table. Jerk occupied one chair while opening his coat. His gaze scanned all directions. The atmosphere was very comfortable and calm. Also, the interior made relaxed, and not many people here. His hand took the menu book. He would order breakfast menu and drink. The barista's sound who was grinding and the familiar smell made him curious. Jerk confirmed that it was coffee. The barista was shocked because Jerk also knew it. Jerk admitted he had drunk it once. In this world there was also coffee, but still not known by many people. Before, Jerk coincidentally got coffee beans sold in the kingdom's capital. After that he ground and drank it himself. Even though the taste was a bit strange, Jerk finally sat at the pantry table. The barista told that before, when traveling, there was someone who served a cup of coffee. When drinking it, The taste was very delicious, even until now he still remembered the taste. Since then he made coffee a hobby and opened this cafe. But unfortunately customer response about coffee was very bad, so what he could do now was practice and practice. Jerk agreed, because not everyone understood the aesthetic taste of coffee just by one drink. He understood, moreover people in this world didn't have a culture of drinking coffee at dusk. If so, he ordered breakfast menu together with a cup of coffee. The barista then prepared it immediately. The barista poured hot water into a tool, then wiped the water splash. Fire was lit and filter was placed. Ground coffee powder was added to the filter, so the hose touched hot water. Then shaken until coffee powder dissolved and water changed color. A glass of coffee was ready. Jerk thanked. The quality was far different from the haphazard coffee he made himself at home. The beautiful black color combined with no disturbing smells. Jerk sipped it, and the taste was really delicious. The barista was very grateful. Initially he felt nervous, because he would serve a cup of coffee to someone who already knew the taste of coffee. Jerk asked the barista not to think about it. Moreover, he wasn't an expert in judging coffee taste. His name was Rondell. He wanted to know Jerk further, because there were only few people who could enjoy a cup of coffee. Jerk also introduced his name. Rondell was shocked. He knew the man was a magic tool maker. It was truly an honor to meet a famous magic tool maker. Jerk felt uncomfortable getting praise. He admitted he was still a beginner. Another man named Noid came after a long time, because he just got leave from his master. Rondell understood being a servant was indeed tiring. Noid glanced at Jerk, because rarely saw someone ordering coffee here besides himself. If so, he also ordered coffee like Jerk. At work, Jerk answered the greeting very calmly, making Tristan wonder because his boss's mood seemed good. Even though last night they planned to eat together, but Jerk instead went home immediately after buying the artifact, so that night he only ate a piece of bread. Jerk was very excited, even intended to tell the reason. However, Tristan refused because still annoyed. Jerk didn't care. He still told that yesterday he tried making drink with the newly bought artifact, and apparently the taste was very delicious. Then, Jerk made carriage as compliment, and apparently the taste was very fitting. Then this morning, he also had the chance to try drinking coffee at a newly found cafe. Tristan didn't want to hear. He asked to stop. Rouge then mediated and said that Jerk was indeed like that, and not only this time acting like that. By the way, she offered a request letter from Katerina. Tristan immediately ranted while slamming the table, hearing the complainer's name. Jerk immediately complained and accused Katerina of being unemployed because always complaining here and there. Rouge explained